Hi, this is Joe Chambers. Welcome to Musicians Hall of Fame Backstage, the Vault Series. Today's clip is one of the very earliest interviews that we did. I went over to session musician, original A-Team drummer, Buddy Harman's house. Buddy talks about how that whole thing got started with the original A-Team. He talks about producer Owen Bradley and Chet Atkins and playing with Roy Orbison and Elvis Presley, even going out to L.A. and making the movie soundtracks. He actually played with Ann Margaret here in Nashville as well. Actually, it's kind of hard to say who he didn't play with because he was on that first group that created the great Nashville sound. Hope you enjoy it. If you do, be sure to hit like, subscribe, and the notification bell so you don't miss any of our new content. Once again, session great, Buddy Harman. Buddy, how many sessions do you think you played on overall?
Over 18,000 recording sessions.
And that's a 3-hour session.
And I started back in early 50s, and up until this year I was still going, and I'll probably do some more when they call me. I worked with, did Big Bad John with Jimmy Dean. Remember that one?
Oh yeah. I
played that one strictly with my hands all the way. I didn't use sticks. I just turned the snares off and did it like that. Played played a little rhythm like that, something like that.
What was your favorite drum set to use? What brand?
Pearl.
Really?
What I play now.
What did you play like with Patsy Cline and?
I played. I've gone through a lot of drums through the years. I had a set of premieres. As time went on, more studios kept opening up, so I had to get more than one set. I got 2 sets. Then I started leaving a set at the studio, you know. Mm-hmm. So I didn't have to carry them around. But I had 2 sets of Gretches, and then I had Slingerland, and then Tama. And then after that, I went to Pearl. Zildjian cymbals, I play strictly Zildjian, the best cymbals you can get, in my opinion, and Pearl drums.
Do you remember your first recording session?
Yeah.
Who was that?
MULLICAN.
And where was that at?
We did it in Gallatin, Tennessee. Randy Woods had a studio up there, and we did it up in Gallatin.
And how long was it before you were able to just make a living from playing music?
Well, I'll tell you, I was doing pretty good for a while, and then in 1954, Carl Smith called me and said, I need a drummer, I'm going on the road. So I said, well, I'm not doing anything, I'll go with you. He didn't know me and I didn't know him from Adam. And so he turned out to be a really nice guy. I really enjoyed working with him. And he had some good musicians on his band too. And so we got out and got to playing Western Swing, more or less, which was, back in those days, there weren't many bands that had that. Bob Wills and Hank Thompson and Pee Wee King, some of those guys, they had drummers with their bands, but drummers was kind of frowned upon in the early years by most acts around Nashville because they weren't used to it. They didn't know what to think about it. So they decided, well, this is not too bad. Let's give it a try, you know. Because they were used to having just a rhythm guitar. They had a dead string rhythm guitar in there for rhythm. Put a piece of piece of paper between the strings, and just get a slap dead sound, you know. And when they heard the brush on the snare, they thought, well, that's even better. So that's kind of how that took off. And
do you remember the first time you played the Opry?
Yeah, I worked it with Carl. He talked him into bringing me on and letting me play, and they didn't like it. They threw a fit, but he said, I had to play on the side of Lightning Chance's bass. He had this little drum head mounted on the side of it, and I had to stand up there and act like an idiot playing on the side of that bass fiddle. I felt like a fool doing that, but I needed the money. I mean, I paid $26 whole for the PA show. That was a long time ago, though. I was just a kid. I was playing a strip joint at the time.
Where at?
In the printer's alley, the Rainbow Room.
Rainbow Room. Mm-hmm.
And Ray Price used to come up there and watch the show some, and Don Law came up there some. And Don said, "I've got this drummer I want you to use on your next session." And he said, "No, I've got a drummer in mind that I want to use." And he said, well, they argued about it a little bit, and finally Don won. And when I showed up, Don said, "Well, that's the one I want to use." Ray said, "Well, that's the one I want to use too." So they both got the same, what they wanted. And we started fooling around with some licks, and I was responsible for the creating the country 4-beat shuffle beat. Actually, now a lot of pop bands had shuffle beats. You know, there's the little Mickey Mouse stuff. That was their shuffle, or else the. But when we got the piano player playing 4/4, walking 4 on the piano, and the bass player playing Joe Zinkins was playing 4/4 on the bass, I walked out there and I gave a good solid backbeat to that shuffle. Don Law said, "Man," he came running out of control and said, "That's what I've been looking for." He said, "You're in." So that's how that was created. And through the years, they wanted, you know, everything can't be a shuffle, so sometimes they would want, one booking agent was in there one time when we was doing a waltz, and he said, "Do you have to play every waltz with like 1, 2, 3, 1?" I said, "No, we change it around a little bit if you want to." So I started playing a waltz on the 3rd beat. He said, "That's good, keep that in." So now they still use that today. Most drummers who use that on a waltz, they'll hit the 3rd beat.
How'd you get hooked up with Elvis?
Elvis came, when RCA signed Elvis, they brought him to Nashville to record. They bought him from Sun, and Chet Atkins did, and Steve Scholz, who was head of RCA at that time. They brought him to RCA to record, and Chet wasn't sure about Elvis's drummers. He wanted to make sure he had a good solid drummer on his session, so he hired me. So DJ Fontana was the other drummer, and DJ's a good drummer, but it worked out where we ended up, both of us playing on all Elvis's stuff together, 2 sets of drums. It really turned out real good.
Y'all actually, I've never heard that before. Yeah, there was 2 sets of drums on Elvis's sessions.
We had
here in Nashville.
On the movie, I mean, on the sessions that we did here.
Now, what songs did you play on?
The first song I ever worked on with Elvis was "Stuck on You." That was the first one, and that's one where we did. I did "Little Sister," "It's Now or Never," and then I went to. They started wanting us to go to Hollywood to make soundtracks for Elvis's movies, so we'd take off and go out there and do the soundtracks in L.A.
What studio did you use out there? Do you remember?
Oh, I did a number of soundtracks. A lot of his movies, Clambake. I just saw a couple recently on TV. The only one I didn't get to do was Blue Hawaii, and that was one where when they were working in L.A. They wanted to cut back on expenses. Somebody did, I don't know who, but it wasn't Elvis. But they took a drummer from the West Coast named Hal Blaine. I'm sure you're familiar with him. Yeah. He went and did that movie soundtrack, and then they came back here and did some more. I worked with him until about 1969 then, and then a new producer came in with RCA and named Felton Jarvis, and he decided he wanted to change bands. So he started using a different band with Elvis.
You played with on Johnny Cash sessions?
Yeah, played a lot of his records, but Ring of Fire was one of them, and a lot of Chet Atkins hits. Actually, we did a lot of albums with Chet and Owen Bradley. And when Owen started using me, there was another drummer on the scene, an older guy that was having bad back problems. So Owen started using me one time. He used me on a session, and when he got the word from his record company in New York, which was Decca at the time, they said, "We like the new drummer, keep him." So that was another plus, and so he did. And another arranger there's a singer named Guy Mitchell came down here to record. I don't know if you remember him or not, but he was a big pop singer, and a New York producer brought him down here to record, and the producer had a real cute idea. Instead of me playing the drums, for a sound I just go ch ch ch. That was my sound. So I did that through the whole record, and I was looking right at the ANITA KERR singers, and they were breaking me up. We had to stop the take so many times because we all got tickled at all that. It was it was so funny. But there's a lot of funny stuff that's happened through the years in the studios. And Perry Como, remember him?
Oh yeah.
Big, he had his own TV show for years. He came here and recorded. He sang so soft that they had to put him in a room where the music wouldn't leak into it because he's such a soft singer, you know. And I worked with Al Hurt, a lot of his hits, Pete Fountain. Oh yeah, Four Freshmen. I worked with the Four Freshmen. A wonderful. I've always admired that group. And we did an album with the Four Freshmen here, and that was you're talking about fun. We got through with that album, and the drummer with that group, when we were through, he said, "You know, I want to pay you a compliment." He said, "You're the second drummer we've ever worked with that can keep time." I said, "Well, who's the first one?" He said, "Jack Sperling, the guy, Les Brown's drummer, a West Coast drummer." So that was really a compliment. I did Patti Page stuff. Roger Miller, now there's a name, there's a funny man, he was. We did, oh Lord, hit after hit, Husbands and Wives, Trailers for Sale or Rent, and that became a real big one for him. And
Dang Me?
Dang Me, yeah. Yeah, he kept us all in stitches during the session. He was just a funny guy.
Producers that you played with, Owen, Billy Sherrill.
Chet Atkins, Owen Bradley, and Jerry Kennedy, Don Law. Even worked for Quincy Jones one time. He brought a piano, Bobby Scott, down here to play a little album. Bobby was a piano player. Simon and Garfunkel came in for a whole weekend to record, and they recorded stranger than anybody I've ever seen in my life. They took each musician and worked with them for about 3 hours at a time, getting them to play. I moved my drums from the control room to the hallway, to the men's restroom, back to the hallway. I was all over the place trying to get. They were looking for a sound, you know. Well, one night we were still going on a Sunday night, so that was my bowling night. So I decided, well, they won't need me for a while. I'll just leave and go bowl and come back. And I did, and I bowled and came back, and they were still working with somebody else. They never missed me. So I guess I owe them for a session, but they never said anything about it. They could afford it. O.C. Smith. I worked with Nancy Sinatra.
Floyd Kramer?
Floyd Kramer. I did all his big hits, most of them.
Last Date?
I did Last Date, yeah. And tell you a story about Floyd. Funny story. We were doing a session one night with somebody, and I had this little habit of taking my drumstick and just throw it down the floor and it bounce up and I catch it, you know. So I did that a few times, and Floyd said, "Well, let me try that." And he threw it down and reached down too quick, and it jabbed right into his hand. And we had to stop the session, let him go to the hospital and get that hand sewed up. And then we sat there and waited till that happened. And when he came back, we continued the session. He didn't try that anymore, though.
George Jones?
George Jones, I worked on a bunch of his stuff. And Tom T. Hall, worked on a lot of his things. And all this time, studios were building like crazy. It was more and more studios were being built, and more and more artists were coming here to record, and I couldn't do them all, so they had the other drummers had a chance to come in and work, like Willie Ackerman came in, and Jerry Kerrigan, Kenneth Buttrey, and so many of them. Now we got a ton of them here. There's so many drummers here now, you can't shake a drumstick at them.